Shalom. This year, 5779 Tufshin Ayin Tet, is a Jewish leap year. Jewish leap years occur now, according to our set calendar, 7 out of every 19 years. There's a 19-year cycle. The only significance of this 19-year cycle is that that's how the Chazal chose to add leap years. This cycle didn't exist. It used to be the sages made a determination on a year-to-year basis or a few years in advance when they would have a leap year. Nowadays, this cycle is based on, it's called a Metonic cycle because it's also noticed by certain ancient mathematicians and astronomers. Meadow is one of them. And they found that in order to keep the solar year and the lunar year not in sync, but not getting out of whack, and an extra Hebrew month is added every 7 of 19 years, and that would be in the years 3, 6, 8, 3, 6, 8, so almost every 3 years, 11, 14, 17, and 19. So if you want to know, is this year a leap year or not, you have to find out what year we are in the cycle, and then see the number of year. If it's year 8, it's a leap year, and if it's year 9, it's not a leap year. And that's the system that works, although there is one particular mathematician in Canada who has proposed that perhaps we should be adding it on a larger ratio. That is, every 7 out of 19 years we add a leap year. Perhaps we're getting the opposite effect. Why do we need to add these months? Because if we did not have a leap year, we would have the problem that the Muslims have. They have 12 lunar months in their year. And if we use the solar year as a standard, let's say the beginning of spring is always the same time in the solar year, Passover gets earlier every year. Let's say Passover was observed on the last day of March 31st. The next year, Passover will fall on March 21st. And the next year, it'll be March 11th. It keeps getting about 10 days earlier. We use the solar year as a standard, so we say that the Hebrew event happens earlier. But if we add an extra Hebrew month, it knocks the observance already a month in advance. So we would have, let's say, Passover is supposed to be March 21st this year, but because we add a leap month, now it's 30 days later, it's sometime in April. And then the next year, it's a few days earlier in April, and then a few days earlier. And every time we add the leap month, it gets knocked more toward the summer. But perhaps because we're adding leap months a little bit too frequently, we're actually making the holidays occur a little bit later than it is. That's the claim. The Chafetz Chaim was aware of this, and others also were aware of this problem. They said, but don't worry about it. The redemption will happen. The Messiah will come. There will be a Sanhedrin which will do away with this cycle. And once again, we will go back to, just like the Sanhedrin decides actually when every month starts on a month-by-month basis, so too they'll decide on a year-by-year basis when to have leap years. In the solar calendar, a leap year just means an extra day. There's 365 days, and every 4 years, except with certain years that are multiples of 400, we do not add an extra day, making the year 366 days. So that's a leap year, adding 1 day. But in the Jewish calendar, we actually add and subtract days all the time. An ordinary year can be 354 days long, or 355, or 353. There's a standard year has 354 days in it, and sometimes we add a day, sometimes we subtract a day, and that has nothing to do with any cycle whatsoever. That depends on every single year. There is no discernible cycle to which years are considered extra long by a day, or considered just right, 354 days, or which years are less a day, 353 days. That's not considered a leap day. So too, when we add a month to the Jewish calendar, we have a leap year. It's considered a 13-month year, but they also have that 3-day give or take. It could be 384 days long, 385 days long, or 383 days long. It has 3 possibilities. We also give or take a day or two. 1 day, give or take a day. And that is a Jewish year. So a Jewish year actually has 6 specific lengths. 3 of those years are considered regular years, and 3 of those lengths are considered leap years. So why do we add a second Adar? Why is it that we don't say, okay, we'll add a Nisan? We'll have Adar Nisan Rishon and Nisan Sheni, or Chas v'Sholom Av. We don't want to have Av twice over. Maybe twice Mar Cheshvan Aleph and Mar Cheshvan Bet. Why is it that Adar is the month that the sages doubled? I'd like to say that this question is almost moot in the times before we had names such as these for the months. Why? Because it used to be the months were just known by number. Nisan was the first month, sometimes it's called Aviv, and Iyar is the second month. That's what's called the second month, and Tishrei was called the seventh month, or it was called Eitani. The Gemara derives that already from later biblical sources, specifically the book of Esther and the books that came after it, it is said that Nisan is the first month. And we find sources that every month is defined by its name and its time. Tishrei is the seventh month, and Tevet is the 10th month, and Adar is the 12th month. If we were to add any other month as a leap month, let's say we were to make Mar Cheshvan the double month, that would make the Tevet following it the 10th month and the 11th month. And we can't have that. Or it would make Shavat the 11th month and the 12th month. We can't double that because Adar has to be the 12th, Tevet has to be the 10th, and Tishrei has to be the 7th, and Adar itself has to be the 12th. The only way we can preserve this is if Adar is also the 13th. If that is, the 13th month is added Adar. We never have it written in the Bible anywhere that something is recorded as happening in the 13th month. So the 13th month has to be one of the months that doesn't mess with this order whereby some other month loses its number. If we were to add a leap month in any other time of year, this Seder, this order would be disturbed. So that's why the sages say Adar is the one that is doubled. Halachically speaking, it does grant something to certain people. I'll give you an example. It says that in Second Temple times already the sages had decided that certain people cannot have a say in deciding to add a month or not. For example, the high priest has no say in this. Why? The high priest would be biased toward not adding a leap month. Why? Because if he adds a leap month to this year, it'll mean that the coming Yom Kippur will be later in the season. And so what does that matter? Because the Kohen Gadol has to go to the mikveh a number of times on Yom Kippur, more than the one time that's demanded of him every day he wishes to serve. He has to go 5 times dunking in the mikveh. And if it's cold, if it's in late October, Yom Kippur, that's a lot more of a hassle than if it is in late September. It's much colder already. So he would be biased toward saying that they don't need a leap year. On the other side, the king has a vested interest in declaring a leap year. The leap year, don't forget, was declared, they made this decision around the fall. Just like nowadays, we have the minhag to add a special few words to the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, L'chaparat Pasha, if there's a 13-month year. But that only kicks in around Tishrei time. So we only add these words for the Rosh Chodesh prayer of Tishrei, Mar Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet, Shavat, and the 2 Adars. But we don't say this before the beginning of the calendar year. They would announce when the leap year is happening around Tishrei. That's when the Sanhedrin would make the decision. And they would make this decision for Adar. Now, why would the king be biased? Because it's in his interest to declare an extra Adar, because he would save on payroll. He has to pay his soldiers per annum on a yearly basis, and basically adding Adar makes the year longer. And he would want that because now he sees, Adar is coming, I'm adding a year, I have to pay them on a yearly basis. This gives me a whole extra month. The 13th month means I get an extra month of work out of these people for the same price. So we see that, once again, Adar was the assumption. It was assumed that this month is being added around Adar time. That's why Adar is doubled. Early in history, we recorded that King Chizkiyahu also made a decision to push off Passover by a month. Sages disagreed with his idea. They said he had already made the decision to add this extra Adar a little bit too late in the season. Technically speaking, in emergency, while it's Adar, they could declare, this is just the first Adar, next month is not Nisan, it's going to be Adar Sheni. But once you get to the day that could be the first of Nisan, the last day of the outgoing Adar, you don't have that right anymore. But apparently King Chizkiyahu, because of the extenuating circumstances, thought, yes, I'll add a month. We'll delay Passover by declaring this to be Adar Rishon. The month that's about to start now is Adar Sheni. Passover is a whole nother month later. This is more time for more people to participate in the holiday. This is smacks of, once again, Jeroboam's crime of pushing off Sukkot by a whole month, declaring Sukkot's not in the 7th month, it's in the 8th month. It's a little bit problematic, but that is still, there's a precedent for this. Adding a second Adar, the sages said, was something that other Sanhedrins did eventually consider. Why? Because when they realized that the grain was not ripening, Nisan has to be Chodesh Haviv, the month of ripe grain, or for whatever other reason there wouldn't be enough lambs available for sacrifice for the Korban Pesach in time, so they could add an extra month and delay Nisan, the month of Passover. Makes another reason why Adar is the month that they chose to double. It gives more time before Passover once they begin to realize that they need more time for Passover. Once again, they would try to make the decision by Tishrei time, but in extenuating circumstances, the decision could be delayed. That's why, specifically, our Adar is, because of all these reasons, the month that is doubled. I'd like to wish everybody this extra Adar in the world of the yeshivas, which is something that's relatively new. The modern concept of yeshiva has only been around for about 200-something years. It means that the longest semester, the time between Sukkot and Passover, when the young men are supposed to be in studying without having extra long breaks, so this allows an extra long winter, a winter semester, which is basically a month longer than it normally would. The second Adar has this advantage of giving us more time to study. There's no holidays in Adar Rishon unless you count Purim Katan, which is not really observed. There's no real observance of holidays in Shavat. Also, though there's Tu B'Shvat, see the previous video about that. It's not actually a holiday that involves any observance. This gives us a time to sit down and focus on our studies without interruption. It's a good thing not to have vacation time. Yes, Chagim are good, but it's good also to have some time where we could just sit and study. That's also considered a blessing. We should take advantage of this extra month given to us to only perform mitzvot and what God wants.